A roll call. Commissioner Briscoe?
Here.
Commissioner Shepard?
Also here.
Bell is here. There is now a moment for public comment for anyone online or anyone in the audience wishing to speak. We do have one person wishing to speak in person. If you have not signed up, then just know that you can still speak. Just raise your hand and we'll recognize you for that 3-minute period. We do ask that you keep your comments civil, that you not react to other people's comments. It's courtesy just to let them speak and have their say, and attempt to let everybody get their opinions heard without comment. So with that, we'll start that public comment period with Dan Tucker.
I'm short. Good afternoon, y'all. Dan Tucker with the Whatcom Working Waterfront Coalition. I just wanted to extend my sincere thank you for all of the work that Adrian Douglas Scott has done with us on the Whatcom Marine. I can't even remember the acronym that she came up with for it, the DERA project that we're collaborating on. So just a sincere thank you to all the staff at the port, the commissioners, Rob, for your consideration on improving that grant collaboration. Thank you so much.
What was the project he was talking about? I'm not sure what the DERA is.
Aaron, why don't you Adrian, why don't you step up and give us like a 1-minute synopsis?
I wrote it down. Hi, my name is Adrian Douglas Scott. Dan. So it's called the Whatcom Marine Vessel Diesel Engine Upgrade Program. It does not roll off the tongue. I will definitely admit to that. I can give you a little more details now, or if you want to pull it off the agenda, we can do it then. So whatever you'd like. But since I'm standing here, okay. So as part of our climate action strategy, we've sort of been keeping an eye out for grant opportunities like this, where we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions as well as diesel particulate matter, which was a big one. As we know, that affects human health and the health of our environment through air quality, as well as water pollution. So, excuse me. I just ran downstairs. In late 2023, Dan from the Working Waterfront Coalition approached the port to help them create this type of a program because they had seen it in other areas of Puget Sound. So there is something similar at the Lummi. The Puget Sound Clean Air Agency has had one like this as well. I don't know if I'm missing one off that. But what this does, it helps to offset up to 40% of the cost to upgrade diesel engines in commercial vessels. And so it would be replacing them with cleaner but still diesel engines. And those are quite expensive, and without this funding, a lot of those vessel owners can't afford to do it. So we're really proud to partner with the Working Waterfront Coalition on this project. We think it's a really good partnership, a good demonstration of the relationship that we have with them. We're the official recipient on this, and we'll manage and administer that. We get a small amount of funding, like less than $5,000 for our portion of that. Dan and his team will work directly with the vessel owners to determine their eligibility as well as the project status. So the application was very competitive. We actually got half of the amount that we had applied for, so we got just over $500,000. And that we had to demonstrate that we meet requirements for goods movement facilities, environmental justice, project sustainability, and our own sustainability programs that we have here at the port. Capability to manage grants, which we've definitely demonstrated over time, resilience to climate impacts, workforce development, and cost effectiveness for those emissions reductions. So this was definitely a team effort between port staff, lots of different port staff, as well as Dan at the Working Waterfront Coalition. We think it's a great fit for our expertise, our interest, and our public expectations as well. So we're really excited to work with the Working Waterfront Coalition and get this off the ground, because we've been waiting quite a while for them to actually make the formal announcement. They first told us in March, so we've been biting our tongues since then.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm going to let the public know about our advisory committee meetings. Our Marina Advisory Committee will meet September 10th at the Port Admin offices here in the Harbor Center building, September 10th at 6 p.m., and it's in person only. That's our Marina Advisory Committee. Our BIAC, our Bellingham International Advisory Committee, will meet October 17th at 4 p.m. That will also be available by Zoom. If you check our website, you can get the Zoom address. But it will be October 17th at 4 p.m. That being said, we are now, and if you're going to go in person to the Bellingham Airport Advisory Committee, it's also available in person at the ARC building at 2005 West Bakerview Road in Bellingham. We will also have a second comment period at the end of today's meeting. At this point, I apologize to the public and to the people. I have to leave early to catch a plane tonight, so I'm hoping to get through some things. If it doesn't look like we're going to make it, I'm going to move all the action items forward a bit and put the presentations behind that, if you don't mind, because I do want to make sure we get through and get a vote on all the action items before we go. But I'm hoping that we can get this done before I have to get out of Dodge. So thank you for your indulgence on that. With that, I'm going to move to the consent agenda, and Carrie?
Yeah, motion to approve consent agenda items A through N.
Commissioner Briscoe, do you have anything you'd like to?
No, I haven't.
Mr. Shepherd?
No.
Nope. And I've had all my questions answered, so Carrie?
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through N.
Commissioner Shepherd?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is also a yes. Well, we're going to make it so we get to go to presentations. Now, but before I do that, I'm going to call on Elliot because he's got an introduction.
I would not want to delay your flight. I'm Elliot Smith, Real Estate Director. I would just like to make a quick introduction of Jamie Twining. Jamie, could you stand up and maybe come up? Jamie is running Financial Plan, Inc., who are our newest tenants out at the Bellwether Peninsula. They will have 17 employees working there to start with and are hoping to grow. They have moved from elsewhere in Bellingham, and we're very happy to welcome them down to our thriving community on the Bellwether Peninsula. Jamie, do you want to just say hello quickly?
Thanks, Elliot. And I won't delay your flight either, kind of promise. Yeah, Jamie Twining, Financial Plan. Just a couple of quick comments about office space in Bellingham. So we've been in business for 40 years. And the first 30 years, we occupied no fewer than 10 different offices in different locations around this community. And, you know, we had various locations in downtown Bellingham. We were in Fairhaven District, Lakeway, see if I can remember them all, Bakerview, Fountain District, Guide Meridian, and not one of them had adequate parking. And every one of them came along with all the nuisances that you might expect when minimum neighborhood standards are not cared for, right? And 10 years ago, we moved to Barclay. You might have seen our sign. We're right across from Regal Cinemas. And that was different. Barclay's a great business neighborhood. There was fine parking. There were minimum neighborhood standards enforced there, so it's been fine. But as Elliot says, we've got 17 people crammed into 3,500 square feet of space on 2 floors, and that's not really ideal. So we were thrilled to find your Suite 301 at Bellwether. And we think Bellwether is actually more upscale. We think it's a beautiful neighborhood, a great walking neighborhood with water views, plenty of parking, secure neighborhood. So we're thrilled to be a tenant of yours, and we're reasonable. We're reasonable. We're easy to get along with. And I have to thank Judy. She's been very reasonable as well and very responsive. And so we're looking forward to it. Thank you very much for inviting me to your meeting.
And welcome to the Spit.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. All right, let's do broadband.
Are you doing action items first?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do action items.
Gina, we're going to do the action items first.
Are we going to do the
Just
action
in,
item first?
just in case. All right, action item number 1.
All right. Motion by the Port Commission to approve a new harbor land lease between the Port of Bellingham and Bellingham Cold Storage Operations.
Elliot, you get to come back.
Hi, Elliot Smith, Real Estate Director here at the Port. I do not have a long presentation for you here, but we have been working for at least the 3.5 years I've been with the Port to establish an equitable new arrangement between Bellingham Cold Storage, our longtime anchor tenant down here at the construction site at the other end of the harbor. Very large employer here at the Port. Trying to come to an arrangement that met the economic requirements of the business that we host and make sure that they're able to invest in our community and continue to employ large numbers of our workforce, and also find a way for the Port to be able to maintain our assets, the workplace that they work in, and get a fair return on the land that we hold in public trust as the stewards of the Port here. I believe that after long, exhaustive conversations, we have come to a point where that balance is reached, and I'd like to wholeheartedly recommend that you approve the draft lease that is, stands behind this action item. I could answer questions for you, but I'd also like to point out that Doug Thomas and Thomas Johnson from Bellingham Cold Storage are here with us today. Welcome. And yeah, a lot of hard work from the teams on both sides and the commissioners to come to a fair agreement for our public interests and the business that employs so many here in Bellingham. So do you have any further questions about this arrangement?
I don't have any more questions for you, Elliot.
No, I'm okay.
Okay.
We'll go to a vote.
All right, motion by the Port Commission to approve a new harbor land lease between the Port of Bellingham and Bellingham Cold Storage Operations.
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Your mic's off.
Commissioner Shepherd?
Also, yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is also a yes, 3 yeses.
I got 2 yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
And we appreciate you being here. We can't underestimate how much you mean to this community and how much you mean to this port. So it's heartfelt when I say thank you. Okay, action item number 2.
All right. Motion authorizing the executive director to execute a settlement agreement with the city of Bellingham related to the R.G. Haley Maka cleanup site.
Thanks, Gary. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I think I had a presentation that was going to get pulled up for this one. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Yeah. So Brian Gowan, Director of Environmental and Planning Services. So this actually is a presentation that I've combined for this action item as well as the following. They're 2 independent actions, but as you see as I go through this a couple slides here, the two items are overlapping. So I'm going to cover everything in this one presentation, and then happy to address any questions, but this will also cover the next action item itself too. So this is related to the Cornwall Avenue landfill and the R.G. Haley Model Toxics Control Act or MODCA cleanup projects. And just for context of where these are located at, the Haley and R.G. Haley and Cornwall Avenue landfill sites are located at the foot of Cornwall Avenue down by the maintenance shop here, and at the intersection of Pine and Wharf. So this whole area that's out here, I'll shout out a few figures that kind of show this. That's the R.G. Haley and Cornwall Avenue landfill cleanup sites. All of this area is filled aquatic lands. This shows the kind of the historic bluff here. So all this area shown here, as well as where we're at right now and former GP site, that's all former tidelands, filled aquatic lands. This area covers about 92 acres combined. That includes the upland as well as the adjacent contaminated sediment. So in the cleanup world, sites are not defined by property boundaries and where properties are. It's where contamination from those operations have come to be present. So, the combined acreage is about 92 acres. Cornwall is about 26 acres. About 14 acres of that is upland, and then the remaining area is where refuse and material contamination has come to be in the bay. And then, although R.G. Haley is this smaller, much smaller slice of upland, it actually makes up a total of about 66 acres of contaminated sediment, and that's related to their operations. And I've got a few figures that shows that. The interesting thing, and this kind of goes back to why you'll have these agreements are before you today, is that the majority of the ownership down there, though, now is all city-owned land as well as state-owned land managed by Department of Natural Resources. So the port actually has very little ownership interests in this area. When we acquired the Georgia Pacific properties, a portion of this was in port ownership, but through a series of property transactions with the city, we gained some property in the marine trades area in the waterfront down by C Street, and in exchange for our interest in the upland in the Cornwall landfill area, because the land use planning for this is for this whole area to become a large park, Sailor's Landing Park, and I've got a slide on that as well. So it made some sense for that to happen. We've been going through the cleanup process independently, and now these are all starting to come together. So the ownership here, majority of this is upland, is city-owned. The harbor, inner harbor line kind of cuts through the landfill site here, so everything waterward of that is actually state-owned land managed by DNR. We do have port management agreement areas that we do work under in a little slice of this, as well as a small ownership at the kind of corner of that beach there by Cornwall and Pine and Wharf. So over 100 years of commercial and industrial activities down there. There've been a lot of different things. A large sawmill was down there, municipal waste landfill. So the Cornwall Avenue landfill was actually in the 1950s, is where all of the backyard garbage that went into garbage trucks was taken down to the bay and dumped in the bay to make land and dispose of refuse. Never would do that today, but that was the process, and that's also why it's a cleanup site. So we've gone through the process of addressing that historic contamination. R.G. Haley was a wood treatment facility, and its predecessors as well. It used a chemical wood treating that was the source of much of the contamination there. Then there was a long time period where GP used it for warehousing and log storage, and then we acquired it back in 2005, and it's basically been vacant ever since then. Although there's a long planning process the city's underway with for that whole area to become a large waterfront park. So for the first action is related to the R.G. Haley cleanup project. And so with where that project is at right now, you can see here on this figure, the area is shown in blue and pink. That's the 66 acres of the R.G. Haley site. You can see then the kind of black outline is the Cornwall Avenue landfill site. So that's the smaller 26 acres. And you can see how they're definitely overlapped and a lot of linkages as to why these two sites need to be managed together. But the R.G. Haley cleanup project is under a consent decree right now with the port and city and the Department of Ecology as signatories. It's at a 90% design, and we're expecting permits for that any day now. So it's really, really close. The cleanup elements that's managed by the city include a soil stabilization and solidification process for areas where there's this free product oil that's in the ground. There's upland capping with a low permeability cap. Dredging in the darker blue, there's some dredging at the face of the near shore, and that'll be consolidated upland and then capped as well. And then the remaining area is capped, and or in the light blue is just natural recovery. So the majority of that area is where natural sediment comes in from the Nooksack and actively buries contaminants. So that's monitored natural recovery, which is what the main cleanup for that area is at for the Haley site. There's long-term monitoring, and then there's overlap, of course, with the Cornwall site. So that's the very quick summary of the Haley cleanup. And this first action, which was the one that Carrie just read, is actually to enter into a settlement agreement with the city of Bellingham between the port and the city for our liability associated with the R.G. Haley site. So we did have a small ownership of that property for a while we leased it to a predecessor of R.G. Haley. Contamination occurred during that time frame, so by state law, there's some liability associated with that. We've been working really closely with the city as they've developed the cleanup process for this, what the cleanup approach is going to be, and we've negotiated a settlement with them, which we think both parties feel like is really reasonable and falls within the scope of what and help facilitate the final cleanup. So the overall cleanup for the R.G. Haley site is about $39 million. The proposed settlement with the city is a $3.5 million payment from the port to the city for our contribution towards that cleanup cost. Those payments actually are agreed to that we could make those over a series of years between 2024 and 2027. They don't need the funding immediately. We can also then budget for it and kind of spread that out. That'll be all paid out though by the time they're actually under construction and incurred majority of the costs. The city releases all the claims from against the port, and they'll complete the cleanup. So with this payment, pending commission approval, this settlement and these payments, the port is out. We're not going to be brought back into the project. If there's cost overruns, other things that go, that's on the city to bear. So this is our contribution and a reasonable settlement for that cleanup. So that's the first action. The next action that hasn't been read yet, but we can read it here in a second once this is done, is related to the Cornwall Avenue landfill, which is the adjacent site. So just the status of where that's at is this is the Cornwall Avenue landfill here, and it's under a consent decree with the port, the city, the Department of Natural Resources in this case, and the Department of Ecology as well. That's also at 90% design. Those two projects have come together and they've been submitted for permits all at the same time with the same overlapping designs, so they're all really, really well coordinated. That cleanup includes an upland low permeability cap on the upland to keep surface water from infiltrating into the garbage and then getting contamination to go out to the bay. It has a landfill gas collection system, a shoreline stabilization system, because that shoreline is actively eroding and that's just garbage eroding out into the bay, right? So it looks like garbage may have washed up, it's actually washing out. So that's a stabilization to prevent that from happening. And then there's a thin layer cap out in the deeper sediments where some of that refuse has kind of gone and settled out onto the bottom of the bay. There's also long-term monitoring there and then coordination with the overlap for Haley. So the action on this one is actually an interlocal agreement with the city of Bellingham to have them take the lead on the construction of that. So up to this date, we've been the lead on the Cornwall site because we had ownership of it before when we got it from Georgia Pacific. We had the consent decree in place before they had even acquired the R.G. Haley site, and we've been taking the lead on that. This is because of the R.G. Haley site as well as the Salish Landing site, which I'll talk about in a second. It makes a lot of sense for the city to do all these projects as one. And so having one party lead those and take the lead. So this is really just an interlocal that documents that transition of the city taking the lead and the port taking a little bit of a back seat. There's no change to any of the financial obligations with the Cornwall site. That's already addressed in a separate interlocal agreement. This is really about processing of payments. So when they incur costs for that project, they bill us. We get money back from the grants. We get money back from AIG. Then we pay them. So it's more of an accounting procedure. And so our team, working with the city, have worked really closely with finance, with the agencies, with the granting agencies, and AIG to confirm that this process works. So there'll be 3 separate bidding schedules, one for Cornwall, and those are the only costs that will be eligible to us. So the R.G. Haley site costs, none of those will come back to us because we've settled that with that $3.5 million payment, and any Salish Landing Parks costs are 100% the city. So this is a process that just documents all that. The one piece it does require is an endorsement by the AIG policy, and that's underway right now. So once that goes into effect, then and pending commission approval, this interlocal would go into effect and the city will take the lead. So the last little piece, just to kind of tie a bow on this one, not really related to these.
Brian,
oh, yes, yeah.
Before you go on,
Yep.
could you go back a slide? One
more?
It says this deep water area site, a future cleanup will define and address this area. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the consent decree on this one that addressed the two main units, which was the upland, and then the immediate near shore. There were some cleanup levels at this time. This consent decree was a number of years ago was entered into, and there were some cleanup levels that were being established, that were being changed, and the ecology didn't have a good handle on how to establish the cleanup for that area. It will be monitored natural recovery. We all agreed upon that, but there just wasn't enough. The regulatory process wasn't far enough along to let us to roll it into the consent decree. So this is kind of, there's a deeper water area that's similar to the R.G. Haley that overlaps with some of this R.G. Haley area that we didn't roll into the consent decree yet. So that's considered a marine unit number 3. It just hasn't been fully rolled in. We're anticipating that that'll be an amendment to the consent decree at a future date, just to say natural recovery is addressing that. They just weren't comfortable in that figure of actually saying that because it hadn't been fully determined. So that was their kind of language of saying that'll be addressed for Cornwall at a future date. we don't anticipate any cost associated with that or anything that's going to really impact either one of these agreements.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is the MACA funding coming in at the 50% match as expected for the city?
Yep. Yeah. So we've had for the RG Haley site, I haven't been tracking exactly where they're at. They did take, so our settlement also accounts for grants coming off the top there. So we basically said that they're assuming they're going to get the 50% grants for that. I haven't checked exactly where they're at with their grant funding. The Cornwall site is fully funded through AIG and existing grants as well, though. Yeah.
And am I correct in remembering this is one of our most contaminated sites in all of Bellingham Bay?
Yeah, the RG Haley site is one of the most highly contaminated sites in Bellingham Bay, and so it's ecology's highest priority. The fact that these are all linked, they kind of have to happen together. But Haley is definitely is ecology's highest priority. So the last one here was just to show that in parallel to this, the city parks team has been working on the Salish Landing Park, which is, basically going to be the biggest waterfront park in Bellingham. It's 3 times the size of Boulevard. The first phase of this will be constructed along with the cleanups. So all 3 of these projects will happen together. The park includes a multi-use trail, parking, adequate parking. That'll be built in phases. The first phase of parking will probably be a smaller amount of stalls, but they have a capacity to expand that. It's going to be a large lawn with a viewing mound that'll have some topography, so it'd be a great spot for viewing the fireworks, sunsets, all that stuff. There'll be a beach on the south side with a back beach for volleyball. There's this play structure planned. There'll be hand launch stuff and a whole phasing of build out. So this first phase will be fairly minimal, but then over the next few years, the next 10 years or so, they'll have multiple phases of construction of the park. But the first phase will be built along with these 2 cleanups, and will be open to the public here in the next couple of years. The timing of all these projects we're at 90% design. We're expecting permits any day. Should get this out to bid by the end of this year, hopefully starting construction early next year. So pending commission approval of all this, we're in really, really good shape. This has been a long time coming for about 20 years, and I think we're getting there.
So what's that number 19? Is that a breakwater or a pier?
Yeah, thanks. That's a groin that is a kind of a wave attenuator. It allows for that shoreline stabilization system I mentioned. It allows us to have, we engineered this so that originally it was going to have really large armor rock to stop that erosion from happening, but that's not very good habitat. So we've permitted this groin that sticks out that does some wave attenuation that allows us to have finer grain material along the shoreline that's much more fish friendly, much more habitat friendly, and there's potentially some public access in that area as well. But that's primarily for the shoreline stabilization, but allowing us to have a smaller grain shoreline that is better for habitat. And with that, I'd be happy to address any questions. Staff recommends approval of both the actions.
Mr. Shepard? More?
I think that's it for now.
Commissioner Briscoe?
I have no questions.
Is it too late to negotiate an off-leash dog area? Can we put
No.
another number in there and just call it off-leash?
Yeah, no, I think you should go for that.
I don't want to hold the deal up if that's going to be a deal killer. But
Yeah.
Be out on the Armor Rock area.
I didn't see that in the. No, I've got none. I just want to say how important it was to have a partnership with the new mayor. Mayor Lund was incredibly instrumental in making this happen, and I kudos to the city for the leadership they showed and for being willing to sit down at the table and negotiate with us. So from that standpoint, this wouldn't be here today in front of us if it weren't for the leadership of Mayor Lund. I think I can say that.
Yep. I agree. The city team's been great to work with. Yeah.
So thank you.
All right.
Okay. Can we do them both at once or one at a time?
Yep. Motion authorizing the executive director to execute a settlement agreement with the city of Bellingham related to the RG Haley MACA cleanup site.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Shepard?
Yeah.
Commissioner Bell is a yes.
And then motion authorizing the executive director to enter into an interagency agreement with the city of Bellingham for the Cornwall Avenue landfill cleanup.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
And Commissioner Bell is also a yes.
Great. Thanks, commissioners.
Thank you. And thanks for the rapid talking. That was great. I'm going to make it.
Seen Brian talk so fast.
You know, all you got to do is put a plane
My
deadline.
ears weren't used to that. They were trying to play catch up on that.
Just to put this in perspective, Rob and I once got to the airport in, 45 minutes?
Quite that fast, but it was close.
Yeah, so I can get there pretty quickly. Gina?
Yes. Hi, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Gina Stark, Economic Development Project Manager. All right. So I have for you a PowerPoint that has lots of pictures and very few words. So we're going to go through this with rapid succession because I know you guys have places to be and things to do. So
I'm going to start every meeting with that now.
all right, so here we go. So again, there's going to be words, but I'm just going to speak very lightly to many of them. I just wanted to kind of remind folks that with broadband, we didn't get into this business just because we wanted to get into this business. We did it with a single purpose in mind, that there is an economic development nexus to this for many of our businesses out in rural areas. Some of them are at-home businesses, and that we really wanted to be economically and fiscally responsible, and that we wanted to go where other folks weren't going, basically some of the other ISPs. So that was the main reason why we decided to do this. And we are doing this on behalf of the county. So this is just a quick snapshot where you can see where all of our projects are based out here in the county. Just for a reminder, and I'm going to go into each one individually and again, just really quickly. But just so you know that these are all what we call a lit system. And so this enables us to use less fiber counts, which is more economically, fiscally responsible, and it enables us to go into those really rural areas, and that we are partnering with Pogo Zone, and they light the fiber for us, and then what they will do is they will operate and maintain the system for us. So again, really being as fiscally responsible as possible with these projects. So we're going to take a little deeper dive, again, just really quickly as a reminder. So this is the East Nooksack section, and this is the only one I will spend just a little bit more time on because this is the one that we are the most furthest along on. And actually, we have customers that we are hooking up on this one. So quick breakdown as a reminder, we were funded by CURB for this one. It was a $584,390 grant, and then an even split with a loan. This one is the only one that the port had to put any funding involved, and that was $114,000. And then we received investment from the county of $750,000 for just over $200 million for this project. And then for this one, we do have 476
Sorry,
homes.
Gina, what was the amount of the project?
It is $2,032,781 to be exact.
You said 200 million. So
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even realize I said that. Thank you for making me pause. It sounded right in my head.
Made my eyes pop, yeah.
Sorry, Commissioner.
Project creep.
Yeah. I had to make sure you guys were on your toes and actually listening to me. How's that? And this one, for this section, we have 476 homes passed. And again, as a reminder, we say passed because we don't have a guarantee that everyone that we go by will actually be hooked up on this one. And then as you're looking at this, so the northern section, so the pink, the blue, the light blue, and the yellow, those are actually lit, and we have customers hooked up on that section as we speak and are getting up to a gig service if they choose to go up that high. And then by the end of September, that big long green section, we'll have that lit and we'll be able to start hooking up customers on that one. And then we're working on the purple. We're waiting on some PSC. We're always waiting on PSC for some permits on that one. And then this one is also kind of in the throes of construction as well. And this is Mosquito Lake Road, again, in the eastern part of our county. This one has 253 homes passed. And again, we're just waiting on some tree trimming and some permits from PSC, but really we've done everything that we possibly can in anticipation. And as soon as we get that, then we're just gonna flip the switch and go. And so we anticipate by mid-September, again, it'll be ready to start hooking up customers. We have a great sales team in place, and so we will be sending out flyers here very soon. We're actually going to be doing maybe some community events as well to just encourage some people to come and just let them know, hey, we're ready to start hooking you up. So we're really excited about that as well. And again, we're keeping our prices very affordable. The prices are around $75 for these services. So we're really, really proud. Kind of been a long time coming, but we are very excited about this. Next one is our North Linden project. This one we got $2 million from CURB, which is the Community Economic Revitalization Board, a great organization that really invests in our community and has invested in various projects. And then $1 million from the county, so a total of $3 million for this, and we have 678 homes passed. Because we have federal dollars, we are required to do RFPs, so we have connected and contracted with Cobb Finley, which is a wonderful company, and they are doing some of our high level and design and permitting, and we are happy that we've got almost all of our PSC poll apps. They're starting to get returned, so by September and fall we can start going out for construction, and we are just about ready to do a bid to start getting our materials. So again, we're just kind of just chugging along, which is really, really great, and happy to report on that.
So you mentioned that's with a different company, not Pogo Zone?
So Pogo Zone is on all three of ours, and then so they're in partnership. So they work with us along with Cobb Finley as we work through the designs, you know, as we decide where the cabinets are, as we look at different things with routes. So a lot of times with routes, we'll have like, okay, we're gonna go down Bender Road. And then we're like, oh no, a lot of those poles on Bender Roads are just not very good, and so we'll look for alternate routes because PSC could say, hey, you need to replace all those poles. So they're right there still with us and helping with those decisions as well. Yeah.
And a question I get quite often is why Pogo Zone? Can you explain the decision tree that led to Pogo Zone being the sole provider?
That's an excellent question. Because we did have relationships and kind of worked with some of our other ISPs. We originally started to work with Ziply when we were over in the East County and spent a lot of times with them. And then we determined that we didn't have the common goals. They just kind of wanted to have a little bit more, you know, control, and when it goes zone, they really had that common sense of they wanted to keep things affordable, as much affordable as possible. They really had a good sense that they really do want to serve the community. They raised their families here and everything, so as well. And they also really brought things to the table. We were already strapped with the East Nooksack because it went from what we had called a mid-mile, and that was back when, you know, you build the backbone and the ISPs will come and, you know, provide the last mile and serve the customer, to where we had to switch this project to where we were doing everything. The mid-mile, service the last mile, and with the same pot of money, right? And so one of the things Pogo Zone came to it and they says, you know what? We'll bring equipment to the table. We'll bring, you know, design to the table. And so then we went to North Linden. Again, they brought resources to the table. North Ferndale, we actually started talking to another ISP and kind of said, hey, we'll do this. You know, promises weren't made. And so again, we went back to Pogo Zone. So it's not like we just immediately just conche blanche just say, hey, Pogo Zone, you get all of the projects.
Just to clarify, though, while ProgoZone is helping us build the projects, it is an open access network that
Yes.
any ISP can participate on, so they won't be the sole provider of internet access to the end customers.
Do we have agreements with PogoZone on any of this?
Yes, and they've all come before you, each one, and each one is separate, so we didn't do a blanket agreement. There's an individual separate agreement with each one, yeah. And at any time, too, each party can back out or, back out of the agreement, so, yeah. Great question.
At this time, we just have one ISP provider, though, on the network. There's capacity, it's an open network. Anyone could step up and provide that, but at this point, it's fairly early, and we just have one provider at this time.
Yes, and that's also why it's a lit network. It's really is geared. We also have dark fiber, so they can use the dark fiber or they can use the lit fiber. So if you're a smaller ISP and you don't have like all the bucket trucks and stuff, you can just plug and play. You just let us know where you want to connect in and which households you want to serve. We connect and you can serve those. We've had conversations with other ISPs that are interested. And so because we have, East Nooksack, some of them are kind of like, let's wait and see, which is great, but still having conversation with those, at least 3 different ISPs I've had conversations with. So continuing to have that engagement with them as well. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, the competition is super healthy here. I mean, that's why we did this, is because there was a lack of competition and then lack of service provision. And so that's been built in, that there is an open network all along, and it's going to afford that opportunity for competition for startups or other, project partners to come in later.
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions. And so this one is Ferndale. So again, this one's kind of a little lagging behind. The total budget is $5 million, 4 from the state broadband office, and again, 1 from the county. And again, I just want to, just make that point that the county has invested in all 3 of our projects. So that's been really great because that's not the case in every county. So it's been really great. Again, Cobb Finley is doing the design on that, but again, we did go out to RFP. The first time we had 7, and this last time we had 8. But again, their proposal, we did score, and we had a scoring committee. They just came out as the highly qualified. So we're in permit process on this one, but it's going well, and it's kind of catching up to Linden. So we're trying to kind of get it up there a little further. Sure.
So on this map,
Yeah.
do you spur lines off of these colored lines?
Yeah, so we do. So for each home pass, right, you can do what's called a drop, and that goes to each home. And the other thing that I also want to make note is that we don't just go to, the home that is just closest. We do reach out to the homes that are further off to down those longer roads as well, whether you're 500 feet, 800 feet as well. We still talk to those homes as well. I just don't always show them on the map because then it makes it a little too busy. Even as it is, I didn't mean to have all the cabinets, but it just happens to have that layer on this one.
And who pays for the drop?
So we pay for the fiber drop, but if it's another ISP, they pay for their equipment that goes to the home, but we provide the fiber. They provide their equipment, though.
So the purple line going out to Pleasant Valley Road?
Yeah.
So on that, that's Kickerville there, you won't service anything north of that Pleasant Valley line from the bluish-green line to the west?
So at this point, no, but stay tuned for the end of the presentation.
Oh, okay. I was just curious. I see a lot I missed my house.
Do you know anybody that lives out there? I was going to ask.
But wait, there's more. We're coming upon that part of the presentation.
curious how far you octopus off of that main colors you have.
Yeah, so again, depending on, so that line of Pleasant Valleys, so to the north and to the south, you know, if there are homes there, then we will do all that we can to reach those homes. Now, if you're 5 miles off of it, you know, we might have to do some negotiation there. Okay, so this is what's next. So as you know, the infrastructure law allocated $48 billion, that's with a B, to the National Telecommunication Information Administration. And what this does is it shows where those various buckets are. The tribal and the middle mile has already been expended. Some of the tribal has been expended. And yes, the Lummi Nation did receive some of that money. The digital equity is out right now. A portion of the digital equity is out right now. There's a notice of financial offering. And then the BEAD, which I'm going to talk about right now, is what we are in the process of eventually applying for. And Washington State got $1.23 billion, and that was based on the number of unserved and underserved individuals. So for each one, we were allocated a dollar amount. And this one, I'm not going to go, the only thing that I wanted to draw your attention to was that estimated timeline. And just how long this is kind of taken from when it was first allocated to when they anticipate, to the federal government, to when they anticipate it'll actually get to ISPs or public entities to actually beginning to build. So a lot of work has already happened, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done before we even get there. So what is happening right now? So the Washington State Broadband Office, they actually determined what the project area is, which is completely opposite of what it's been up until now. Up until now, we, like ourselves, we determined what our project areas were. The State Broadband Office based the project areas on census blocks and determined that there needs to be at least 1,000 broadband service locations as much as possible in those service areas in the census blocks. And then once in about the fall, they're going to finalize what those service areas look like, or those project areas look like. After they do that, then they're going to release the notice of opportunities, so NOFOs. And then how it's going to be is there will be, they estimate 2 rounds of funding. They estimate, so we don't know. And then applications are going to be awarded on qualifications and then on the lowest bid. So it's a completely different system than it's ever been before. And then once they determine who's awarded it, it gets approved by the federal government, and then we finally get money. So it's not going to be a quick process, to say the very least. So I just wanted to give you a quick snapshot. This is Whatcom County, and in Whatcom County we have 11 project areas for a total of 8,618 broadband service locations. So that's the total number of unserved and underserved in Whatcom County. So just to kind of give you guys a really quick snapshot.
Is that 8,000 individual homes, 8,000 individual properties?
Homes, yeah. And then this is preliminary of the project areas that I, in consultation with Executive Fix, have identified that we will potentially apply for. And if you notice, these are where our 3 project areas. So again, going back to our goals, is connecting our networks, right? And that's what we've always done. So not just, hey, we're gonna go for all of these, is that we're gonna connect our networks, right? So keeping with our mission and our goals. And by picking these, we would be serving and connecting 3,341 broadband service locations. And so this is just a quick snapshot of what we've been doing. We've been, like I said, meeting with ISPs on what they're up to, working with a consortium. I brought that before you guys, attending some meetings. We're going to finalize project areas, find our committed partners, and then really drilling down to those project areas. And then this just kind of gives you an idea of kind of the partners and who we've been working with. So really doing a lot. And what I was remiss, so I didn't put in here, is that I've attended a couple of consortium and BEAD meetings with the tribes out at the Silver Reef Casino. I've met with them individually. I've also met with the Nooksack tribe. So I apologize for not putting that on there as well. So really making sure, and there's another one that's coming up as well. And with that, I'm done. Hopefully, Commissioner Bell, you have plenty of time to catch your plane.
Seriously, I am going to start every meeting with that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions, Commissioner?
Do we have any idea for this upcoming rounds of funding? Will these be 100% grant funding? Are we going to have to do matches? Do we have any idea yet?
So the great thing is that the Washington state, and we were one of the very few states that did this, is that we asked the legislature for matching funds. And this upcoming session, the State Broadband Office is asking for an additional $200 million for matching funds. So that meets the requirement of 20%. And the great thing about that is all we have to do is basically check a box that we would like the matching funds, and then based on how much our project costs, put in how much. Yeah, I know, I wish all grants were like this. Which is really explains why, you know, the ISPs are so willing to have conversations. But you know, in all, you know, seriousness, we can't do this alone. The ISPs recognize that in some of these areas they cannot do this alone. The ROI just doesn't pencil, and we know, as you know, we've already realized this here at the Port of Bellingham. We cannot do this alone. It makes no sense.
Well, great. Well, I just wanted to give a shout out to the county, both the EDI board and the council and executive for helping to move this along. It's been a really important partnership, and it's really paying off here.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I really appreciate their investment in this and their continued partnership in this. So, yeah.
Well, we've congratulated you before and thanked you on your work here, but this is one of those projects that none of us knew how to do, and you took it and ran with it and continue to run with it, and it's really making big difference for many individuals in our community. So thanks for your continued work.
Yeah, you betcha. Thank you.
Commissioner Briscoe. Where is the PUD falling in line here with any of the work for broadband? I'm just wondering what their role is going to be going forward.
So the PUD, we meet often and talk often, and they're in a lot of these meetings. Currently, the PUD, they received grant from WISBO, State Broadband Office, and they are building out in Point Roberts. And then they do anticipate going after some of those BEAD projects. And they haven't finalized which ones yet as well. But I anticipate that they will do some of those project areas. And that's great. Me and Andrew sat down, and he's like, which ones are you doing? I was like, I'm doing these. And he's like, okay, well then I'm gonna do these. And then they really do have a focus in some of the East County project areas. So they also have been a really great partner to work with as well.
So the story for coverage is much better than what we just see, because we've got the PUD filling in areas where we're not. So we're actually getting a tremendous amount of coverage through this.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that between the PUD, the port, and our existing ISPs, Astound, Comcast, and Ziply, by the time that BEAD is done, we should be pretty well covered. There's a couple of those areas that are kind of funky. that, you know, we're not sure. But like I said, we've had conversation, Andrew and I, we've already spoke to Astound, we've talked to Comcast, which is great to have that collaboration and coordination. So we all have that goal of like, we want to ensure that Whatcom County is covered by somebody, and we are not putting on airs of like mine. It's like, let's just coordinate and make sure that we get our county covered. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Tiff, you get to close us out. Harbor Vessel Registration Program.
The closer.
Okay, good afternoon, Tiffany DeSimone, Director of Maritime. Here to give you an update on the vessel registration compliance initiative that the harbors are currently running. We heard from Commission as well as from our Marina Advisory Committee that people who had lapsed registrations, they wanted us to kind of check up and see if we couldn't remedy some of that. And so that's what we have begun to do. So just an overview of what registration requirements are. Basically, all documented recreational vessels in Washington need to be registered. Non-residents have, if they're going to be in our state for more than 60 days, they are required to register. There are a few exceptions. You can see those listed there. I want to remind folks that this is outside of commercial activity. So this is not for the commercial fishing fleet. We have other ways of monitoring them. So you can read those exceptions. And then under our harbor rules and regulations, we also have requirements. So this has really just been kind of a change in administrative process. We didn't need to update anything or change any of our rules. So here's directly from our rules and regulations. You can see the highlighted area, basically just saying you must be registered. That's our current, that's no changes. So what we did is actually harbor staff, Thomas Smith in particular, harbor operations specialist, put together a timeline for a program. It's pretty motivated timeline. So we started in June 15th. We mailed out the first letters. And the reason we started this time is because recreational vessel registration happens July 1st for everybody. So it was a natural time to hopefully when people are already have it in their minds. So we mailed those first letters out, and I think we've been updating Commission about that because we did anticipate maybe a little pushback. We haven't received anything really terrible. In fact, quite the opposite. People are very supportive and appreciative. And then you can kind of see the deadline. We are currently at the August 15th, so letters to non-compliant customers. The whole goal of this was to help people get into compliance, not to kick them out of the harbor, just to be clear. So you can see we do, at the end of the timeline, October 1st is really the deadline, but I want to be clear that at any point in this timeline, if people will just call us and communicate with us, we will help them get through it. So we're not going to take your boat tomorrow, guaranteed. We're going to go through this whole process. Any questions on the timeline?
How many letters did you mail out in June?
Well, I'm going to get to the compliance portion, which is right there. And I think it's my last slide. So, so we began this June 15th. Squalicum Harbor recreational vessels are 85% in compliance, and Blaine is at 74% so far. So we're pretty happy with that. The rest doesn't seem insurmountable to be able to collect or at least communicate with those customers. And the benefits of this program, well, it's the law. So that's always a good thing to follow.
Just 85% of 1,200?
1,600?
1,600?
1,500, yeah, in Squalicum.
In Squalicum, and then 75% of how many?
600 in Blaine.
600 in Blaine.
Rob's going to correct me on that. Is it 1,200 in Squalicum or?
I'm not going to correct you because I think I'm wrong.
It's on the website, the exact number. Yeah, it's a lot of customers. So it also follows along with our rules and regulations. So we're enforcing rules and regulations we already have. Helps assist our harbor staff with inventory reconciliation, which is we must charge people if they're at our dock, so it helps us understand who's there and using their boat. It helps us with the removal of possible derelict vessels. There is a correlation. The state's done lots of studies, and they really do have an incredible derelict vessel program. They run it very well. They operate it very well. They're very communicative. All of the harbor masters can literally call them up and talk to someone in the office that day. So they've been that's been a great program. And then, of course, these registration fees help fund that program. That's it. Any questions?
Commissioner Briscoe, of course you do.
No, I have no questions. I'd just like to thank staff for the effort they're putting into making this happen. It makes our harbor safer. It frees up slips for people that are using vessels, and it stops accidents in our harbor with regards to sinking vessels, and then we have to remove and clean the mess up. So all in all, it's something that needed to be done, and I'm glad that the staff has taken the initiative to get it done, and thank you.
Thanks. We do anticipate when we get to that end deadline that there'll be some maybe not so happy folks, but I really think harbor staff's done an incredible job at fielding the questions, being transparent with it, and really communicating with customers. Anything else?
Commissioner Shepard?
Yeah, I think it would be good for us to have another update as we get closer to
Sure.
that, just because I'm anticipating some unhappiness and just making sure we're communicating as fully out to the public. So
bet.
if we could get you to come again, I think it would be useful.
We sure will, and we'll get this in our newsletter as well, which will be helpful for those customers.
Yeah. Good program. Thanks.
Thank you.
And thanks for taking the heat, because we know how hard it is, and
Thanks.
we're
appreciate
learning that people don't always want to cooperate.
Yeah. This one actually wasn't as bad as we sort of anticipated. I think there's been a lot of talk about it, so that's really helpful.
It's not over yet.
Okay, thanks. Call me Pollyanna.
Thank you. Okay, other business? Sure. Now we'll open the meeting up for another round of public comment. If you're online and you wish to raise your hand, we will accept public comment. Anybody online? Anybody in the building? Other business? Commissioner
none.
You're trying to get me to my plane on time.
I can vote for Bobby. I have some.
Go ahead.
So first off, I just want to say that Squalicum has 1,300 slips and Blaine has 629.
That's a lot. I already said that.
So the port reached out to Blaine council members, and we tried to set up a meeting with them to discuss the investment in the waterfront. And I did get feedback from the mayor, and she is willing to meet. I reached out to one of the Blaine City Council members. His name is Richard May. And he said that that's not how they work. And if we want to have a meeting with them, that we need to do a work study. And he said the only available date this year for a work study is at 4 p.m. on August 26th.
My recommendation is that we set a date and we send it to the council members and see who responds with an interest, because we've only talked to one, so I think.
No, actually, I sent sorry, Rob, I'll let you finish.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
I just wanted to let everybody know that I sent every council member, including port staff, three different dates. And every one of them, the only one that responded that would come is the mayor.
But you didn't get response from the other council members? So let me reach out to the mayor and the city manager and try and work through this, because I don't want to just write this off. I think it's an important thing to do. I think the city's interested in that, and I don't want one council member to shoot it down, because we've only heard back from one.
I
Right?
just want to tell them that's not the way we operate.
I agree with Rob. Knowing the personalities involved,
Yeah.
I think the Blaine City Council will agree if we just set a date.
Yeah.
One personality is not going to drive this.
Yeah.
So let me work with the mayor and the city manager too as well, and see if we can't get through this so that we don't have one council member shooting it down.
Sorry, Richard.
If we can't get a meeting that everybody identifies, we can make a meeting with the mayor
Yeah.
and
That's a good
one that works with our schedule, and then invite anybody from the council, and we'll find out who's interested.
So a question. Are we trying to do an in-person meeting or a Zoom meeting or what?
In person. We're going to do it in Blaine. Carrie went to the effort of setting up a meeting up there at a pretty decent hour, so it would work for everyone after work, and we'd get together in a very informal setting and talk about our plans in Blaine. There wasn't any voting to be had, and there wasn't any official business really. It was just kind of an update to them. And that's my fear, is that I want the whole council to hear it, or the whole council minus Richard May, if so be it, but more than just the mayor.
Yeah, I don't think we invite Richard now. Invite everybody but Richard, if you would.
Doesn't work for him anyway up there.
He's still invited if he wants to come.
Thanks, Carrie.
Mr. Shepherd.
Let's see, we've got another festival this weekend at the waterfront. Carrie, do you want to give us a couple details on what's going to happen at the mural festival, Noisy Waters Mural Festival, right?
Yeah, it runs all weekend. It starts at 9 a.m. and there is festivities literally going all weekend. If you look online, they have a schedule all 3 days. So from 9 till the end of Sunday, there's just a ton of different activities. There's kid zones, and the artists are doing work where spectators can go and watch, and they have, they're having a recycled fashion show, so different people in the community are gonna dress up in these recycled clothes, and they're gonna, do a runway.
I do that every day.
Dressed in, recycled stuff. So anyway, go online and check it out. It's literally 3 full days of different activities.
Sounds great. Another great event coming this summer at the Waterfront District, and just a shout out and thanks to Paper Whale. We've seen, I think, 6 murals go up in Bellingham over the past year because of their efforts, and it just continues to beautify and kind of activate spaces around the community.
In my day, those were called hand-me-downs.
Recycled clothing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anything else?
That's it for me.
Mine is just a real quick shout out in remembrance of Peter Paulson, who passed away. He was an instrumental part of this port. He was an instrumental part of the Bellwether Hotel. He generous in his contributions, and we have a stage that he donated to and is now named after him. So I didn't want to let his passing go without comment, just to let him know, or let his family know, what he meant to this port, what he meant to this community, and what an amazing guy he was. And the stories of how Peter Paulson worked are legendary. His personality was larger than life, and he's going to be missed. With that, meeting adjourned.